Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Alison and in this video we're going to be discussing how eczema can be affected by the gut. Remember to like, subscribe, share, comment and hit that notification so you know when the next video is coming out. You already know that eczema isn't just caused by one thing, but for the sake of this video we're going to be looking at specifically atopic dermatitis, which is one of the 7 forms of eczema. Now, you know also that it doesn't just affect adults, it also affects children and babies, and it does not discriminate based on your gender, whether you're male or female, whether you are black, whether you are white, anything in between. It really doesn't matter what culture you come from, it doesn't matter what race you are, it doesn't matter what colour you are. If you have eczema, you need to deal with it uniquely to you. So for today's video, we're going to look specifically at the gut and what you can do to help prevent eczema or help to heal it. When it comes to what you're putting in the body, i.e. through the mouth, you need to be aware that eczema can be caused by inflammation in the body, low-grade chronic inflammation in the whole body. And it can also be caused by what is going on with your gut. So first of all, look at what you're putting in your mouth and therefore into your gut. You want to be looking at the food or the drinks you are actually consuming. So are you drinking too much sugar or eating too much sugar? Does it just need to be in the form of sweets, chocolate, cakes, biscuits and junk foods like that? It could also be something as simple as fruit juice. Now fruit on its own is good for you because it's got fruit fibre in there and the actual natural sugars that occur in fruit. However, when you strip the actual fruit away from the juice and you're drinking juices only, you're drinking sugar. Even though it's a natural sugar, what you're not actually getting is something completely natural, because in order for the manufacturers to make that into a fruit juice, they have to process it, either by adding things to it or stripping things out of it. And in that respect, even though it might say it's one of your 5 a day, yes it is, but you're not actually getting the good stuff from it. What you are actually getting is high fructose. You're putting that into your gut, you are feeding the bad bacteria in your gut. Now remember, in your gut you have good bacteria and bad bacteria fighting for survival. And because of the amount of processed foods we eat and sugars, the bad bacteria tends to be higher than the good bacteria unless you're actively going out of your way to eat foods that are good for your gut. So what can you do? Some of the simple changes you can make are to reduce the amount of sugar you consume. Now, we're not just talking about the sweets and things that I mentioned. You're also looking at alcohol, unfortunately. So all those sweet drinks that you buy, for example, Wicked drinks or the actual, what do you call them? The high energy drinks, also high sugar and caffeine, or just cutting back on something as simple as beer. And beer is also known as liquid toast. Reason being is because it's a high carbohydrate, okay? It's a simple carbohydrate that spikes the actual insulin levels in the body very, very quickly. Again, you are feeding the bad bacteria in your gut. Now, when the bad bacteria in the gut is winning the war, as it were, winning the fight, that means that your gut can start having issues with it, which is therefore going to affect your skin and therefore increase the chances and the likelihood of you having eczema and other skin conditions. Now, for those that do like to drink beer or alcohol, there is light at the end of the tunnel because there are wheat-free beers. I'll have a look for you, and if I can find any, I'll put them in the description below. But I believe there are Japanese beers that are gluten-free, or well, wheat-free, but I do believe that might have barley in there. You could also look at spirits. Now, certain spirits are going to be high in sugar, as an example, something like brandy. But then you've got spirits such as vodka, which are low sugar. And you've also got tequila, because it comes from a flower. I believe it's called the agave flower. So that is one that I do drink, and I'll mix that with something like lemon and soda water, or just sparkling water. Now, also be looking at caffeine. Even though caffeine isn't sugar, caffeine can also disrupt your gut flora or the balance of your gut microbiome. Again, if you disrupt your gut flora, you're going to disrupt your skin health. You also need to be looking at your medication. Now, it's not food, but certain medications can trigger off issues with your gut. Now, you already know by now, because I've spoken about it before, antibiotics can mess about with your gut flora because antibiotics don't discriminate. They will strip out your good and your bad bacteria from your gut, and you'll need to replenish that with probiotics, which I'll talk to you about in a moment. But also certain medications. I've mentioned in previous videos that antidepressants can cause problems with your gut. Paracetamol, codeine-based medications. There's a lot of medications out there that can play havoc with your gut. So when you do first receive your medication, read the actual leaflet. I know it's a pain in the backside to read the leaflet, but read the leaflet and see if it mentions any gut issues. When you are taking medications that are going to cause havoc with your gut, then always wait a 2 or 3 hour gap between having that and then a probiotic, which you can then take to help balance out the gut. It will take a while for your gut to be balanced out, but it's definitely worth the wait. You heard me mentioning not eating lots of rubbish foods, so I'm going to mention to you also some of the foods you can eat to help. But before I move on to that, I'm going to say that as well as processed foods causing a massive impact on your gut, so not just sugars, I'm talking about high fat foods, but I don't mean good fats. Good fats are actually good for your gut. So good fats such as avocados or coconut or olive oils. I'm talking about rubbish fats, trans fats, the kind of fats you're going to get in pizzas, the kind of fats you're going to get in pastries, the kind of fats you're going to get in highly processed foods, like when you buy your chicken McNuggets from McDonald's, or when you buy your breaded foods that you stick in the freezer. Just anything that doesn't look like it comes from the ground, tree, animal or sea. You are eating processed foods, you are eating rubbish. So pretty much anything that has got loads of ingredients in the back of the label, it's processed. If you look on there, you might see sugar. You won't just see sugar, however, you might see syrup, you might see sugar, you might see lactose, you might see corn syrups, you might see glucose as another name. Sugar has many different names, and I believe when I last counted, there were probably about 80 different descriptions for the term sugar. It comes under syrups, it comes under all these different things that you wouldn't imagine are actually in a product, but they are. Before I end this section, I'm actually going to say, look at your meat as well. I used to buy a sandwich meat in the past to realise how much sugar is actually also in there. You might see molasses in there, syrup in there, honey in there, and sugar and glucose. So again, that's going to affect your gut. It's going to affect how much bad bacteria you have in your gut. The bad bacteria wins the war, then it starts to affect your skin. Now, before I move on to the topic of what good stuff you should be eating, I'm going to mention the non-sugary stuff and the non-processed foods that you need to be looking at as well, because they can also trigger off the bad bacteria in your gut or the low-grade chronic inflammation in your body. Now, animal dairy is one of those, unfortunately. So if you're a lover of milk or cheese or yogurts, just know that there's, even though it's not gluten and even though it's not sugar, animal milk can cause your blood sugars to spike. It can also increase your IGF-1 levels in your body, and I can't remember what that stands for because it's in my head, but I'm going to forget. What happens there is people who have acne, for example, or people with eczema, it will make their eczema worse because it causes inflammation in the body, it triggers issues in your gut, and it therefore increases your skin condition issues. I'm also going to mention eggs. Now, not everybody who has eczema reacts to eggs, but just like milk, because of the part of the animal that it comes from, as in the part that regulates the animal's hormones, it can also trigger off your eczema. Now, I have tried the lactose-free milk for my son and myself, but we still react to that. That's because you've got sugars in milk and you've also got the enzymes in milk. You might be reacting to either or both of them. When it comes to eggs, you're going to react to the actual yolk, but to be honest, if you don't react to eggs, stick with them if you like them. What I will say is whether you have eggs or milk and you actually enjoy eating them, look where possible to go for a really high quality. So if you're going to have eggs or milk, look at the cows that are being grass-fed or organic milk, or even raw and pasteurized milk, because again, if it's been pasteurized, it's gone through a system in a factory and it's messed around with the milk, so it's probably stripped away a lot of what was good about it. And the same with the eggs. If you are eating eggs that come from chickens that are raised in a barn or cage, they are not getting out in the sunlight, they're not healthy, they may have been given antibiotics to stop disease. If you're in the US, you might have been from chickens that, for example, have had steroids. So there is no way for you to remove this stuff from the actual milk or the eggs before you consume it and put it into your gut. So whatever the animal ate or however the animal was being treated, you are now ingesting and eating, and that is going to affect your body and your gut as well. So where possible, if you're going to eat animal or drink animal milk products, or eat animal eggs, or chicken eggs, or even duck, anything like that, make sure they have the highest quality standard you can get. So I do occasionally eat eggs, so I tend to go for my locally produced eggs from local farms or local shops, or even people who actually have their own chickens. Failing that, I will get organic eggs from the supermarket. Some of the first changes I made with food were to do my elimination diet and my food diary, which I've spoken about that before, and in the description below you'll actually see the guide on eczema where I talk about it some more, and also the dry skin guide. Now, as well as removing processed foods, I'm also removing some natural foods to see how we fared with them. So we removed gluten, which is wheat, rye and barley. We removed eggs and milk. We removed sugar, caffeine, chocolate, nuts, oily fish. We started to introduce things that I knew were good for the body and that weren't trigger foods for our eczema. Now, the first thing we looked at was consuming more natural, fresh and whole foods. And even though I say fresh, frozen is also okay, because when foods and fruits and things like that get frozen, they get frozen at the site normally. So when you are looking to eat fruits and vegetables, you want to be looking at a colourful range. You want to be looking at things that are going to give you lots of vitamins, whether it be vitamin A, D, E, K, zinc, magnesium, all these different things. So as an example, I would look at eating fruits that were organic, apples, pears, plums, nectarines, you name it, the basic stuff, but also trying a variety of fruits that were maybe tropical, so mangoes and pineapples that were naturally sweet. Now, currently there's only one thing better than organic, and that is something called biodynamic. Now, I don't have access to that, so organic is where I go when it comes to buying my fruits and vegetables, where possible. It's not always possible, remember the cost and also where you live, just what's available in the supermarket. And you would have seen in one of my previous videos, I've only recently started growing some of my own vegetables as well. So I'm growing like lettuce, kale, spinach, just started growing beetroot as well. So what I tended to do is I'm looking at organic fruits and vegetables where possible, and even if it's frozen. So I know, for example, Waitrose do frozen spinach and it's organic. They also do frozen mixed berries of like blueberries, blackberries, strawberries and raspberries. Whereas things like you can also get Morrison's do your organic apples, your organic kiwis. I kind of spread it around, look online, see what's available online, and either do a click and collect or go ship the shop. I'm lucky where I live because there's lots of different supermarkets. Now, the reason I say to make sure you're eating lots of fruit for the sweetness is because your fruit contains a fruit fibre which slows down the speed in which you're absorbing the fruit, so it's not bad for you in that respect, whereas the actual fruit juices are. Also, when it comes to your vegetables, try and have as many very different colours as possible, because the darker the fruit or the darker the vegetable, the more antioxidants it has in it. And as you know, antioxidants helps clear the free radicals in your body, which can be caused by the UV rays of the sun or the actual pollution that we live in. By doing that, it helps your eczema, it helps to soothe your eczema, and it works from the inside out. Also, as well as having lots of antioxidants, fruit and vegetables are also anti-inflammatory, which leads us on to the fact that you shouldn't just be having fruit and vegetables. You also want things like nuts, pulses, beans, in the form of flax seeds, chia seeds, which you can have ground or actual as a whole, which you need to soak, which is easy to digest. Or you can be having things like kidney beans, lentils, chickpeas, all these different things, quinoa as an alternative rice. And again, that leads me on to the fact that you should be cutting back on things like white rice, white potatoes, white pasta, white and brown bread. Don't be fooled into thinking brown bread is any better for you. It tends to be white bread with a little bit of treacle in there. However, wholemeal bread is different. That is okay. So just be aware that when you are making the choice to go to more natural things, you're choosing the best, whatever you can afford, the highest quality possible. And what I tend to do is if something is on offer, I will buy a lot of it and I will freeze it. I'll cut it into pieces. For example, I will buy organic bananas before they start to turn too much, peel the skins off, stick it in the freezer, broken in half. Same with my avocados. I'll peel the avocado, de-stone it, chop it into pieces and freeze it. The same when things are going to be reduced in price because they might be going out of date or expiry dates, wash it as soon as you get in, chop it and freeze it. I do that a lot. This does mean that all year round you can have organic vegetables or fruit where possible. And where the fruit and vegetables isn't organic, go to a list called the organic, it's the Clean 15, which is one of them, and the Dirty Dozen. and that will tell you which fruits and vegetables are okay to have as non-organic option. So, as well as looking at foods and drinks that are actually good for the body, which is going to help eczema overall because you're cleaning the body and helping the body from within, also look at spices and herbs, because you can actually get anti-inflammatory spices and herbs. So for example, something like cinnamon is anti-inflammatory and antioxidant, so is turmeric, so is ginger. Really simple. Another one of my favourites, but not so commonly known in the UK, unless you have an Asian or African or Caribbean background, is ashwagandha. Now that actually helps from within, and it actually helps your body to produce natural oils, which will help your dry skin and therefore help your eczema. But all those ones I previously mentioned, and there's hundreds out there, they will actively help your body to reduce inflammation. If it's reducing inflammation in the body, it can reduce inflammation in your gut, which means it can help reduce inflammation on the skin as well. Now, before I move away from food, I was going to mention fish. This is the hot topic of mine because I absolutely love fish. But through doing research, I've come to realise that you shouldn't be eating more than about 2 pieces of oily fish per week. Now, for some people with eczema, and I've mentioned this before, oily fish can trigger your eczema. But if you've done your exclusion diet and your food diary, and you know that oily fish doesn't trigger your eczema, then opt for no more than 2 pieces of oily fish a day. And this is simply because the quality of our oceans, because of pollution, you are actively eating the fish that are being polluted. So you might be eating toxins in the body of the fish. You could be eating also mercury, plastic even. The amount of plastic that's been found in people's bodies under microscope is because of the amount of fish we are eating and just pollution in general. If you're going to eat fish, stick to the smaller fish, because the larger fish eat the smaller fish and it goes down in levels, and the larger the fish, the more polluted it is. The smaller the fish, the less long it's been alive, so therefore you're eating less pollution. So I tend to stick to things like sardines, and also salmon. I tend to stick to those 2 mostly, and there's also mussels as well. So when you're going to have fish, try and opt for the line caught fish, not the farmed fish. Farmed fish don't have as much omega-3 as wild fish, but also they have too much omega-6, because fish that are farmed are given feed that is high in omega-3, omega-6 and all these different things. It's also, as an example, when you buy salmon, which is farmed salmon has its pink colour because it's given pink food to give it that pink colour, otherwise it wouldn't come out pink. Whereas a wild salmon gets that colour because of what it's been eating whilst it's been travelling through the sea, through the rivers. So the only farmed fish that I'm currently aware of that you should be able to eat and not have issues with it is mussels. Now, mussels are self-cleaning. All other fish which are farmed need to have antibiotics in the water and various other things in case the fish get ill, because they're all living, sleeping and pooing in the water and in close proximity. So you're going to get dead fish in there. So in order for fish not to get some kind of illness and pass that on to humans, the fish and the water they live in has to have things added to it. And again, doesn't matter how much you cook that fish, you are consuming whatever the fish have consumed. So where possible, wild caught fish should be an option over farmed fish. Now, again, even though I mentioned eating fish twice a week or no more than, I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian, but what I try to do is in the week, I stick to mainly vegetarian meals and vegan meals, and only on a Saturday and a Sunday, I eat my fish or my meat. Again, because it doesn't matter how hard you try, animal product will cause inflammation in the body and cause distress to your gut. Yes, it has advantages because there's lots of things in your animal and fish meats that are good for the body, but again, if you are someone with eczema, it can inadvertently affect your skin and your gut. Now, the last 2 topics I want to mention are the actual prebiotics and probiotics you can put into the body and into the gut to actively heal and help your gut to improve. So I've mentioned before that antibiotics do not discriminate, and they strip the good and the bad bacteria from your body regardless, of how healthy you eat. And you need to gradually build that up again to improve your gut and therefore improve your skin. Now, what's the difference between a prebiotic and a probiotic? Well, a prebiotic is pretty much just the fuel that fuels good bacteria in your gut. And the good bacteria is put there via probiotic. So the prebiotic fuels the actual good bacteria, and the probiotic creates the good bacteria in your gut. Now, prebiotic can be quite easily obtained in food form, which is like garlic, ginger, onions, asparagus, even basmati rice, my favorite. Brown rice is better than white rice, but I do like white rice as well. So basmati rice is a really good option when it comes to having rice as a prebiotic. And also, if you reheat the rice, that also creates a resistant starch, which actually improves the quality of the prebiotic properties within the rice itself. So 2 or 3 day old rice, as long as it's been in the fridge, is actually better for you than the actual fresh rice. Probiotics can come in the form of fermented foods and drinks. So I've mentioned it before, but I eat sauerkraut, which is just cabbage which has been fermented. So cabbage which has been fermented. You've got kefir, which is a drink, which is it's a drink, and you've got kombucha, which is another drink as well. Now, not forgetting you've got live yogurts. However, if you do have yogurts as a probiotic, don't get the ones with sugar in them, because you might be putting good bacteria in there with your probiotic yogurt. However, you're then fueling the bad bacteria with the sugar. So try and get yourself the actual sugar-free probiotic live cultured yogurt. And if you want to add something sweet in there, you can add your own natural honey. So it's going to be a natural local honey. If you want to go one better, you can try and get organic. However, even though organic is obviously normally better than non-organic, I would say when it comes to going for local honey, if you can get local honey that isn't organic, then go for it, because it's been local bees. It's also going to help your eczema, because it will help you with his allergies and things like that. For my son, we have local honey because of his hay fever, and it works fantastic. Within 3 weeks of taking it, his hay fever is pretty much eradicated, and he takes that all the way through the year, 365 or 366 days a year. So just make sure when you have your probiotic yogurt, there's no sweeteners in there, no sugars in there. And that pretty much where we end it, really. So you want to be not putting certain things into your body. You want to be definitely adding whole foods into your body, limiting your animal and your fish and your dairy and your milk, but as much anti-inflammatory foods as possible, prebiotic foods and probiotic foods, which will reduce the inflammation to your gut and therefore also reduce the inflammation to your skin. I hope you found the video informative. I myself and my children are in a place now where we are comfortable with what we are eating. We understand when something has gone wrong. We can pretty much pinpoint what we've eaten, what's caused a problem with our gut and therefore with our skin. And I say it's taken quite a while to get here. It's been years in the making, but now that we know where we're at exactly, we're in a very, very good place. I hope you guys get there too, but take your time, learn, educate yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to get in contact. That leaves me just to say, remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, and hit the notification so you know when the next video is coming out. And don't forget to look below in the description to see those free guides for eczema, adult acne, or dry skin. Bye for now.